So far this NHL season, I have watched a good amount of games from all 31 teams. Now, obviously, I can't catch every second of every game from every team. That's literally impossible because you have teams playing on the same night, games going on at the same time, but I do try my best to stay up to date with every single team and watch as many games as I can to provide the best content possible for you guys. Now, in today's video, I want to talk about one player I have been impressed with so far from all 31 NHL teams. Now, remember, these are players that have impressed me. This is completely subjective. You guys could have completely different players for all 31 teams because maybe the game that I watched where the player that impressed me stood out, and then maybe a game that you watched who didn't do so great in that game, if that makes any sense. So these are just some players that have impressed me so far in the games that I have watched from all 31 NHL teams. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. Starting the video off with the Anaheim Ducks, and my pick for them is Ryan Miller, obviously serving as the backup goaltender to John Gibson. But so far this season, Ryan Miller has been fantastic with a perfect 3-0-0 record, a 2.10 goals against, and a .929 save percentage. The guy is 39 years old and is aging like fine wine and is definitely a big help taking some pressure off John Gibson, and so far he's been super impressive. Next up we have the Arizona Coyotes, and this was an easy pick for me. Every game I've watched, Nick Schmaltz has looked like their best offensive player. 12 points for him through the first 13 games of the season, a big reason why they have gotten off to a good start, and a big reason why their offense is a lot better this year than it was last year. Moving on now to the Boston Bruins, an easy pick for me, it's gotta be David Pastrnak, who has really made that leap into becoming one of the best players in the league. 13 goals in 13 games, 27 total points. I see no reason why he won't hit the 50 goal and 100 point mark. He's been a monster to start the season. Next up, from the Buffalo Sabres, my pick is easily Rasmus Dahlin, the 2018 #1 overall pick, and it blows my mind watching him play and remembering how young this guy still is. He's off to a fantastic start to the year. His overall game is just so much better already this year than it was last season. He's in for a big year and is already one of the best young defenders in the league. For the Calgary Flames, my pick is Matthew Tkachuk. The 21-year-old winger has gotten off to a great start with 14 points through the first 16 games. He's got his bid in for goal of the year. That overtime goal through the legs was one of the craziest things that I've ever seen. He's super talented and his all-around game just seems to get better and better. He's definitely been the most impressive Calgary Flame in my opinion so far. For the Carolina Hurricanes, I could have picked a ton of different players, but I went with Erik Haula. He was injured basically all the 2018-19 season and then came over basically for free in a trade that was basically a cap dump from the Vegas Golden Knights, and he's been fantastic so far for Carolina with 8 goals through the first 14 games and 11 total points, definitely helping out with the depth scoring of this team, and one of the reasons that this team is so dangerous is because they have so many guys that can score. For the Chicago Blackhawks, I can tell you who it isn't, definitely not Jonathan Toews. They definitely need to step it up, him and Patrick Kane, and to break it if this team wants to turn their season around. But so far, I think Robin Lehner has been pretty steady in net for them, and he's definitely going to have to keep that up now that Corey Crawford is looking like he could miss some time, but I've been pretty impressed with Robin Lehner's starts so far. Moving on to the Colorado Avalanche, and my pick is Cale Makar, and like when I'm watching Rasmus Dahlin, I cannot believe Cale Makar is still such a young player and has already had such a big impact on this Colorado team and is such a big reason why they have been so good to start the season. He's probably at this point my pick to win the Calder Trophy. He's been amazing so far. For the Columbus Blue Jackets, my pick is Pierre-Luc Dubois, especially now with the departures of guys like Panarin and Duchesne. I feel like Pierre-Luc Dubois has really stepped up and solidified himself as the best forward on this team and is really thriving in that role and is well on his way to having the best season of his career so far. He's been pretty impressive so far in the games that I've seen. For the Dallas Stars, my pick easily has to be Roope Hintz, who has basically been carrying this team offensively on his back with his 9 goals through the first 16 games of the season, 11 total points. He's well on his way to having a big breakout season, but now it's just a matter of some of the other guys stepping up around him if this team wants to start winning some games. For the Detroit Red Wings, my pick easily has to be Anthony Mantha. Now, me being a big Wings fan, I have watched every single game so far, and the difference from last season to this year is kind of mind-blowing. Anthony Mantha is so much better this year at just his speed, using his body to protect the puck, and obviously finishing, as he has 9 goals through the first 15 games of the season. Next up, we have Leon Draisaitl for the Edmonton Oilers. It's really kind of crazy to think him and McDavid are on the same team because Draisaitl is one of the best players in the NHL. I feel like he doesn't really get the respect he deserves for how good he he actually is, and people say, oh, he's only good because he plays with McDavid, but you could actually make the argument that Draisaitl has been outplaying McDavid through the first couple of weeks of the season. He has been a monster so far. Moving on now to the Florida Panthers, I almost went with Jonathan Huberdeau because he's been pretty dominant, but that's kind of to be expected now since he just had a 90-point season. But my pick for them is Brett Connolly because no one really expected him to come in and play too big of a part in this team, but so far, 5 goals, 5 assists for 10 points through the first 14 games. He's been very good and is looking like a lethal top 6 forward for them. For the Los Angeles Kings, my pick is actually Ilya Kovalchuk because after last season, I really did not know what to expect from him coming into this year, but so far, 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points through the first 14 games. He's averaging 15 minutes of ice time per game, which is definitely up from last season, and overall, he's just having a much better year. So far, I've been pretty impressed with the bounce back year he's having. Next up, we have the Minnesota Wild, and I'm actually going to go with Brad Hunt, who is currently their second leading scorer as a defenseman. 4 goals and 4 assists for 8 points through the first 14 games of the season. He's 31 years old, was never really a regular in the NHL before this year, so it's kind of funny how good of offensive numbers he's putting up for the player that we all expected him to be. So far, I've been pretty impressed with his finishing ability and his offensive contributions. For the Montreal Canadiens, I'm going to go with Jonathan Drouin, a player that everybody has been waiting to finally have that breakout year, and so far, it's looking like the year for Jonathan Drouin. Now, knock on wood, hopefully I don't jinx anything, because I'm a big fan of his. You know, watching him play for the Halifax Mooseheads growing up, I really want him to succeed, and he's off to a great start to the 2019-20 season. Next up, we have the Nashville Predators, and this one was actually pretty easy. I'm going to go with Pekka Rinne, who has a 7-0-2 record with a 2.19 goals against and a .920 save percentage. A big reason why they have gotten off to a solid start. UC Saros numbers not the greatest with his 1-4 record, so Pekka Rinne still making the case that he should 100% be the starting goaltender, and even though he's kind of getting up there in age, he still continues to impress me. For the New Jersey Devils, my pick is Pavel Zacha, another guy that I didn't really know what to expect from heading into the season, someone who is kind of getting the label as a bust or a disappointing draft pick, but so far so good for him. 2 goals, 4 assists for 6 points through the first 11 games, on pace to have probably the best season of his career so far, and I feel like his overall game has definitely gotten a lot better, and he's definitely been a really good forward for New Jersey so far. For the New York Islanders, I'm giving the honors to both Griess and Varlamov as a tandem, and last year we saw how good Griess could be in a tandem with Robin Lehner, but once they swapped out Lehner for Semyon Varlamov, I was kind of skeptical about it heading into the season, and I thought they would have a little bit of a drop-off, but they've been amazing so far this season, and the goaltending and defense has been one of the biggest reasons why. For the New York Rangers, we have the player that actually inspired me to make this video because I've been so impressed with his game, and that is Ryan Strome, and I'm just super happy for him because he's another guy who is kind of labeled as a bust or a disappointing draft pick, and we didn't really know what his role was in the NHL anymore after coming over from Edmonton to the New York Rangers, but he's been fantastic this year with 11 points through the first 11 games, averaging about 18 minutes of ice time per game, so the coach is putting a lot of trust in him, and he's definitely been showing up with some really good offensive numbers. Next up, we have Connor Brown from the Ottawa Senators, a guy who was kind of buried in the bottom 6 in Toronto, and everyone kind of knows he definitely has top 6 potential, and so far in Ottawa, he's been one of, if not their best forwards through the first couple of weeks of the season, and that has definitely been a bright spot in a season that has been kind of dark for the Ottawa Senators. For the Philadelphia Flyers, another very easy pick. It's got to be Travis Konecny, who in every game I've watched, he's looked like their best player and has really taken charge and stepped up in a big way after getting that new contract extension this summer. He's living up to it. He's earned every dollar so far, and hopefully he can continue that because if he does, this could be a huge year for him. Moving on now to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it's got to be Sidney Crosby. What he's been able to do with this injury-riddled Pittsburgh team is honestly pretty amazing, and him at the age of 32 years old is still one of, if not like a top 3 player in the entire league. He's still so good, so fun to watch, and has definitely been their most impressive player so far this season. Moving on now to the San Jose Sharks, a team with not many bright spots this year, but I guess I'm going to go with Evander Kane, who was suspended for the first couple of games, but since he's been playing, he has been their best offensive player through the first couple of weeks of the season. A team that has gotten off to an absolutely nightmarish start to the season. They're going to need a lot more guys to step up around Evander Kane if they want to turn the ship around. For the St. Louis Blues, I'm actually going to go with David Perron, who is a point per game through the first 15 games of the season with 7 goals and 8 assists. He's playing like a very, very good top line player. He's 31 years old. Didn't really expect that from him coming into the season, so he's definitely been a pleasant surprise and a super impressive player so far for the St. Louis Blues. Moving on now to the struggling Tampa Bay Lightning, and I'm actually going to go with Kevin Shattenkirk, logging 20 minutes of ice time per game and has 10 points through the first 13 games of the season. When you told me that he was going to get bought out and go to the Tampa Bay Lightning, I would have thought that is to be expected. That's a good landing spot for him, but more so as a bottom pairing guy. But he's stepped up and been a very, very good defenseman for them so far through the first couple of weeks of the season. Now it's just a matter of getting everyone playing well so this team can finally start to hit their stride. Moving on now, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, my pick is Ilya Mikheyev, a guy who came over from the KHL, and there actually was a good amount of hype surrounding him because he was putting up really good numbers over there, and that has translated pretty well to the NHL. In a limited role so far, he has 11 points through the first 15 games of the season, has already became a fan favorite in Toronto. You can definitely say that they found a hidden gem in Mikheyev. Next up, we have the Vancouver Canucks, and this is another player who kind of inspired me to make this video because of how impressive he's been so far for his new team, the Vancouver Canucks, who have been benefiting in a big way from how he's been playing. So far, he's got 15 points through the first 14 games of the season. JT Miller, a guy who I kind of expected to come in and be like a 55 to 60 point player, but if he keeps this up, he definitely could be up there around 75 to 80 points. He's been gelling perfectly with this team, and it's looking like that was a very, very good pickup. Moving on now to the Vegas Golden Knights, my pick is Max Pacioretty. He's another guy who I didn't really know what to expect from coming into the year. Over the past couple of seasons, he's had struggles staying healthy, wasn't the greatest last couple of years in Montreal, but it seems like he has really found a new home in Vegas and is thriving playing with Mark Stone. He's been very good to start the year, and my fantasy team has actually been benefiting in a big way from his success so far. For the Washington Capitals, who else but John Carlson? Not only has he been one of the best defensemen in the NHL so far, he has been one of just the best players in general. Some ridiculous numbers so far for John Carlson. I picked him as my defenseman of the month. The channel, you guys voted him as defenseman of the month as well with like 85% of the votes. That just shows how dominant he's been, and he's finally getting some credit that he deserves. I think he could be in for a massive year and definitely get some hardware. And now finishing out the video with the Winnipeg Jets, and my pick is Patrik Laine. I'm really happy for him because he got a lot of criticism last year for not really having the greatest season, but so far he has been one of the best forwards on this Winnipeg team, and that is to be expected. But it's not just the goal scoring, his overall game has definitely taken a step up, and his playmaking so far this season has actually been very, very good. So that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to let me know down in the comment section below who have been some players that you didn't really expect to do good, but have kind of been impressing you so far to start the season. And with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.